The broadcast is now starting.
Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy end of July. Happy holy hot dog on a stick, Batman. It's almost August. Where did summer go? And welcome to another edition of the PixelMill webinar series. And today's offering of no user adoption without representation, 10 steps to design a SharePoint portal your users will use. Whew, what a mouthful. We are so excited to have you guys here. Thank you so much for joining us. We have a really great session for you guys today. Can't wait for you guys to check it out. If this is your first time ever joining us for a webinar, hello. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here with us today. If this is your second, third, 29 and a half webinar with us, thank you so much for coming back. We appreciate having you here and appreciate always having you here. Now, whether you are a first timer or a 29 and a half timer, we encourage you guys to follow us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, keep track of when we post these videos. We have a lot of new content coming up in the next little bit here, so keep an eye on that. And if you want to keep track of when we get the webinar recordings up, follow us on YouTube as well. You can also check us out on Twitter and Instagram at PixelMill Team. Find us on LinkedIn, find us on Facebook, check out pixelmill.com. We're all over the place. It's real easy to find PixelMill. We hope to find you there sometime, somewhere, anywhere. Now, on to some more webinar-related things. If you have any questions or comments, there is a questions tab and a chat tab attached to this GoToWebinar. Throw your questions on up in there. I will be following those as we go along, and I will try to sneak them in there as best as possible throughout the session. If for some reason I don't get to them right into the moment, we do leave time at the end of these for a little Q&A, so that we can make sure we get to your questions. Speaking of the end of the webinar, make sure you stay tuned all the way to the end, guys. We have a little special thing for you guys, a little contest we're going to run, but you got to stay tuned to the end to hear all about it, so make sure you do that. Anyway, enough about me, enough of my rambling, enough of this stuff. Let's get to our session today. Our speaker is a familiar face. He should be the other camera that you're seeing. He's a really great guy. He's Microsoft MVP. He's Microsoft Regional Director, father of two, really cool guy. Eric Overfield, take it away, boss.
Excellent, thank you. I'm coming in loud and clear.
Oh yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you all for joining us. Yeah, I'm excited about this topic. I've been seeing many more of our clients and many more of the people that have been hitting me up on social media, et cetera, asking about what can we do to further user adoption, and hey, I built this really great solution, yet people aren't using it. So what am I supposed to do? So let's dive into that. Let's see what we can do. And as Michael said, I'm really looking forward to your questions here. I'm doing my best to start to limit my content to a lot less time, because really a lot of you are here because you've got questions that you want to have answered, and that's what we're here for. So please do use that question bar, the question chat window. Ask those questions. We'll do our best to get to those during the conversation here. If I can end early, I'm going to try, because I really want to have time for those questions. And if you don't have questions, well, you know, that's sort of a bummer, because it'll be a little bit of a waste of our time. And I really want to maximize this time that we have together here and maximize the value that we can provide to you. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and see what we can do to get started. Go ahead and get that thing going. Excellent. So for those of you who are new to PixelMill, new to me, a little intro on myself. My name is Eric Overfield. I'm the president, co-founder of PixelMill. As Michael said, I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Office apps and services space. I'm also a Microsoft Regional Director, which means I do not work for Microsoft. It just means that I'm a part of the program that they have for executives to help other executives understand how to use technology, Microsoft technologies. I've written a couple of books. I'm active in the community as much as I can be, because that's why I love my job so much. So much of what I do is getting to work with you all, getting to work in the community and help promote Microsoft 365, digital workspaces, and productivity in the workplace. And I find it to be a very rewarding job. And please keep those questions coming. And if you want to hit me up and chat about this stuff, pretty easy to find me. If you can just remember my name at Eric Overfield, ericoverfield.com, eoverfield@pixelmill.com. I do my best to make myself readily available to everyone and to do all that I can to further the conversations. One of the new projects I've been working on over in the Microsoft or SharePoint PnP community, the open source community, is the SharePoint Starter Kit, SP Starter Kit. So if you just Google SharePoint Starter Kit or SP Starter Kit, you'll find that project over in GitHub under the PnP banner. And I've been really proud to help lead that project. It's been a lot of fun to help promote portals and solutions on top of the Microsoft 365 platform. If you want to learn more about PixelMill, if you're new to PixelMill, so we are a digital workspace digital agency. We're based out of Northern California. We've been doing this for quite a while, and we feel very confident that we can help organizations build, migrate to, manage digital workspaces. As Michael said, hey, you should really check out our YouTube channel. We've been spending a lot of time trying to provide as much valuable content as possible, including all of these webinars. So it's pretty easy to subscribe. If you just go to youtube.com/PixelMill videos, you'll find a big subscribe button.
Hey, Eric, I think your screen is paused still, possibly, because we're still only seeing the title screen.
Okay, thank you. Let me see. Okay, it says waiting for content. There we go. How about now?
There we go.
Excellent.
Yeah, now we're on the rest
Thank
of it.
you.
All right, cool.
Let
Just
me
want to
go
get that
ahead
right.
and I'll just quickly go back one slide in case you want to learn about who I am and whatnot. Just remember my name, Eric Overfield, ericoverfield.com. And then you got everything on PixelMill. So yes, thank you for that very much. All right, so with that though, let's go ahead and get into our content. And really, I like always starting with like, why are you here? What's in this for you? Well, the big thing that I want you to get away from this is all about user adoption. You're building these solutions on top of Microsoft 365 platform, and are people going to be using them or not? And one of the important aspects that a lot of people either don't get right, they don't understand, they don't talk to people about, they don't talk to their users about is user interface, UI, and user experience, or UX, which we're going to get into that if those terms are new to you or if you've heard them but you don't know what they are. All of this drives down to uncovering your users' needs. And what I want to do through the next few minutes is discuss with you, how are you going to help get to what it is that your end users need, how that's going to affect your user interface and user experience so that you can drive that user adoption. Because to me, that's what really matters. You can build a great solution. They don't use it. I will see that in a second. So to narrow that down, what I want to do is go over 10 steps that we have found that are very important to follow when you're looking to build a award-winning or a really good portal solution on top of the Microsoft 365 platform. Now, that being said, we're actually not talking too much specific about Microsoft 365. We're not going to be talking about how SharePoint does a specific job. That's not what I care about in this particular conversation. What I care about is in general, if you're looking to build a solution, these 10 steps are probably something you should be following no matter what. And what's in it for you as well? Q&A. Please keep those questions going. If one of the questions was, hey, the screen doesn't look like it's updated, great. I'm glad someone might ask that question, but I'm much more interested in the specific roadblocks you've been seeing or specific questions. And if they are specific to Microsoft 365 and user adoption, great. Or user interface, great. You want to make some sort of change to the user interface in SharePoint that reflects over in Teams and that's hurting adoption? Yeah, let's talk about it. Let's see what we can do and go from there. So this is all important because it doesn't matter how cool a solution might look or how much effort you put into it. If no one's using it, if people aren't adopting it, if they're finding too many problems with it, did you actually build a good solution or not? And I believe the question is rhetorical because I believe the answer is just a resounding yes. It's crucial that your users that are going to be using the system feel represented in the solution that you've built for them. And there are lots of ways that you can do that, of course, but we found a really good prescribed list of how we're going to do that. So there's this value then of listening to your end users. Because when you listen to your end users, you're actually going to be building a solution that's going to be addressing and solving their specific needs, which is really the whole point of this. I mean, I've worked on projects that have taken over a year to build for lots of myriad reasons where they were, large, multi-thousand-hour projects. And I could see where they could have greatly failed when the user wasn't being listened to. But I've seen projects that anywhere from weeks to months to years as well, where when the user was listened to at all these different times, we built solutions that you could clearly see and the metrics showed drived home what they were looking for because they used it. And we got good compliments rather than complaints of, hey, I can't use this or I can't do this. When you listen to your end users and you include them in the conversations, they get the sense of ownership as well of that this solution you built for them is theirs. It's not just something that you've forced upon them or the organization's forced upon them, but it's something that they've helped build and they get that ownership and they will then have that greater pride in using it, which is a good thing as well. Now, if you're listening to your end users from the beginning throughout the end of the project, that in and of itself will build yourself a feedback loop, which is so important because what we're finding in digital workspaces, and we definitely have seen this in general, which is that there's an evolution of digital tools that we use in an organization. I mean, sure, it used to be more that Microsoft, let's say, or another provider would provide a software, we would install it, 5 years later, 8 years later, we would look to upgrade it, et cetera. That was an evolution. The evolution that we're seeing through cloud services that most of us are either have migrated to, are migrating to, or are considering, and I'm sure a few of you are saying, nope, we're not going to the cloud. Yeah, okay. I keep still hearing that, and I keep hearing less and less of that. But there is going to be an evolution in the tool set. And so in working with your end users and having a feedback loop already prescribed because you started listening to them in the beginning, you're already going to have that feedback loop to get from them what new things they're looking for, what new tools they're looking for. Maybe they heard about some other tool that's outside of the ecosystem that your organization supports, and they start bringing it in, also known as shadow IT. You can already you're already in that loop to be listening to them to say, oh, wait, why are you using that other solution? Maybe that's not going to meet our governance policies. Maybe it's not going to meet security requirements that we may have, but we already have that feedback loop in place so we can look to build the proper tools into our digital workspaces that will automatically fit in everything. And that's then, of course, going to help drive overall and continued utilization and adoption. So right before we get into the 10 steps that we have, I do want to make sure we define UI, UX, and how that relates to user experience. So often you'll hear people will say, oh yeah, we got to worry about UI, UX. Like we say it as sort of one word, but UI and UX are not the same thing. They're much more like kind of like peanut and butter and jelly. They really, really work well together. I mean, this is something that they go great together, but they are very different things. We like to say, it's peanut butter and jelly time. Yes, absolutely. They go better together. So what else does this mean? UI stands for user interface. That in the digital world, the user interface that we're seeing is the actual physical, like the web page that loads in a browser. That's your user interface. Things that the user interface are addressing, or some questions it's looking to address, is the components on the page, are they intuitively placed? Do they make sense that there might be a navigation at the top? Your navigation is not in some weird spot. Is the content intuitively placed? Is it placed somewhere where people would think, that's where that kind of thing belongs? Is the logo in the right spot? Is elements to be able to provide feedback in the right spot? Does the color and branding of your solution match your organizational requirements? So PixelMill, we have a blue and gold, blue and orange kind of color palette, but if our portal was yellow and green, that wouldn't really match our colors. Now, there's going to be another emotional aspect to that, which we'll get to shortly, but on the UI side, we're looking at, do they actually match the branding of our organization? And then are we using the empty space on a web page? Are we using imagery and fonts correctly? Are they using the right size? Does it make sense? That's going to be the user interface, the UI. Now the UX, that's for user experience. This is more of an emotional thing. This is more about how the experience of the user is. So if you take the branding idea, this isn't going to be, did you use the proper colors? It's going to be, does the solution represent our brand? So are you a very tight-knit, close, very corporate feel that's very IBM-ish and very three-piece suit? Or are you much more Silicon Valley flip-flops and shorts in the office kind of thing? And you have your pets come into the office. Those are two very different feels. And does the solution represent that feeling of the brand of your organization? If you look at the design, if the design just, is it too busy? It invokes an emotional response that you wouldn't want. Is it just too difficult to navigate? People are too frustrated because the navigation is wrong. Not that things are intuitively placed, but rather are people just not able to get it because it's just too frustrating because there's too many levels of navigation and people can't find what they're looking for. That's the user experience. Is the content actually digestible? Not is it placed in the right spot, but rather is it broken up in certain ways that people can actually read that? Where this comes down to, though, is effective UI and a UX that you've thought through and you've worked with the end users on to ensure that it's providing the experience they're looking for. That is going to impact the utilization and therefore the productivity. If people aren't, the solution may fit your brands and you may think the navigation's in the right spot, but people still can't navigate your site, they can't understand the content, they're just going to send that email, they're going to call up that coworker, they're going to send that email off or do something else. They're not going to be utilizing the solution you built, which you're looking to save them that 5, 15, 20 minutes a day, which adds up in organizations of thousands of people. You're looking at hundreds, if not thousands of hours of savings per day if you're able to build a good solution that people can use. And this all comes down to, is the user interface and the user experience correct? All right, so then, like, what are the 10 steps? And I like these 10 steps as being in order. I mean, there really is a defined order. These aren't something that you should just go, oh, I'm going to start at step 8 and then come back to step 1. No, I would really recommend that you walk through these steps and that you address them one at a time, and then or stack on top of each other. But digest these kind of as I bring them, please. I think you'll find the most value out of them. So step 1, of course, is getting orientated with the solution that it is that you're looking to build. And your project may be in the middle of these. I totally get that. No worries. You might want to think through, oh, yeah, good, we already did that. Or you might see that you skipped a half of a step, or you might have skipped a step. You may want to go back and say, okay, are we able to adjust that a little bit? So if you're building any kind of digital workspace solution or any solution, you need to define those users. And the users is everybody, anybody who might be involved in this project to the people who will be utilizing, digesting, et cetera. So identifying those stakeholders is always key. Identifying who's going to be making a lot of the high level decisions. A lot of us in organizations, they're without the right buy-in from the right corporate leadership or from the right senior leadership can mean that projects get stalled and don't go anywhere. So identifying the people that can help keep things moving is important. Who's going to be creating content, who's going to be delivering the solution, trying to identify some of your power users and your champions. These will be your people who, a select group of people who really get it and like they enjoy it, they like it, and they're not your content authors often, they're not going to be your stakeholders, they're often just those frontline workers, those end users, but they really like it, they get it, they're social people that want to be able to share what they learned as well. They're going to help. And of course, identifying who your end users are for specific solutions. If you're building portals for the entire organization, kind of everyone's an end user, including the stakeholders, content author, creators, et cetera. But if you think about just who's going to be consuming content, identifying enough representation of those people so that you can work with them. And then starting the definition of what the scope of this project is going to look like, because we're going to go into more details in step 2. But what are just the general goals? We need to build a new portal for our organization because of these reasons. We're on an old version of SharePoint. It's out of date. It's too cumbersome to add content. People are emailing each other too much. We want to build a digital workspace built around Teams that does something, or even a step above that. We are not communicating, collaborating well enough. Our solutions appear old and out of date and underutilized. We need to find a new solution. That's getting orientated because we now know who's going to be involved, and we've outlined a general idea. And then having the creation of a success plan there of what is going to be constituting success. What does that actually mean? And having those metrics. We're looking to have utilization of this new solution go up by 80% of our organization within the next within 3 months of launch, and we're expecting these kind of things, that email will drop to whatever based around these kind of emails that would be sent. So corporate news and things like that. I mean, you can set these general success plan ideas, because that's going to drop you into then really step 2, which is defining those KPIs, those key performance indicators of what is it that we're trying to do that we can have metrics on, so that we can determine, did we get it right? Are people actually using the solution? Can we go back to the organization and say, I mean, this is important. We've dropped email utilization down by 20,000 less emails a day because we're seeing our 5,000 employees, our 5,000 workers send 4 less emails per person per day asking for things such as where the documents are, or what's the status on the meeting, or whatever. And we've seen the utilization jump in this way over on Teams because it's not doing that kind of thing. Those sort of KPIs are super important. And being able to go back to your platform of choice, if you know what platform you're going to use, and determining what sort of KPIs they can provide. So let's take Teams or Stream or SharePoint, where Microsoft does provide some reports out of the box. How could you build some KPIs around the reports that are readily available, or what could you do maybe with Power BI on top of it, so that you can show that the solution you're building is actually working and is actually making sense. I want you to really be defining your scope as well as governance plans during the second stage, because that's going to really help you build the foundation you need in order to get going. You're going to also notice in these 10 steps that we don't get down to implementation for quite a while. That's quite on purpose. I heard a quote yesterday from Danielle, our marketing director, and it was a quote she said was from Einstein. I believe her. I don't know, but it was something like, give me, if I have 100 days to solve a problem, give me 99 days to figure it out and 1 day to implement it. And I believe that, where planning is so important, and you're going to see all these steps are about planning, setting things up, talking to people, determining what it is what's the right solution to build. one step to build it. You're going to build it, you're going to test it, you're going to deploy it. So please keep that in mind. There's a reason why there's so much planning going on here. Okay, so defining qualitative as well as quantitative goals, I think, is really important. So goals that you can test, as well as goals that you can just have a qualitative analysis on. Planning for governance, we've already talked about, or we hit on. So how is this thing going to be maintained? What are the policies and procedures that are going to have to be followed around the solution to be able to build it out? And then having that actionable plan of high level and then as granular steps as possible that you can, to say, here's the process we're going to follow. Now, there's this idea around there based around what I said, an actionable list of items. And that could then get you down to a discussion of, well, does that mean waterfall? Does that mean agile? Does that mean that we have to go step 1 through 100 in order? Or can we do this sprint based where every 2 weeks we're trying to rebuild something? My experience is that the best solution for these kind of project, it's a waterfall based approach with agile like sprints. So the idea there is that you're still going to be following a path. You're going to build a plan. You're going to refine the plan. You're going to start to build an interface or design an interface. You're going to go through an implementation. You're going to go through a QA, sort of in those steps. That's the way most organizations are comfortable with. Because true agile is at the end of, you have a backlog of user stories, and you are going to then, at the end of every sprint, you effectively have a released product, a release solution. And I found most organizations aren't able to do that very well and effectively. They end up doing waterfall anyhow. So I'm just going to kind of cut to the chase and say, I like this idea of sprints where you can have these short things that you're trying to do. You might be doing multiple things at once, but in general, the overall approach is going to be kind of an actionable item. We need to do this, then this, then this, then this. We can multi-thread or multi-process on these certain things. We're going to go back and refine certain things. We'll have a releasable internal product or a project by this date, even though we know more things are going to come. I mean, there's a definite this idea of agile within waterfall, and I really think having that actionable list of items that is echoing the success plan that you have is going to be really important to build out as quick as possible here. And I'm saying about in that second step, after you've already gotten a brief overview or a general overview of the project, great, now you need that list of things that you can work upon. Okay, so moving on from there then, at this point, now you're just going to be starting to talk to your end users. It's not that I don't think you should have talked to those people in steps 1 and 2, but now it's discovering and defining and starting to detail out what it is that your end users are looking for. What is it that you're trying to do? Meeting that success plan. I'm not trying to figure out how we're going to do it yet. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. This is purely talking to end users and keeping as open mind as possible as, okay, what is it that we're going to do? I would go one step further. Let's just say that you are, in fact, a Microsoft shop and you're going to be working with Microsoft 365. And in all fairness, of course, I'm very biased. That's the solution I think is the best for digital workspaces. But that being said, when you're talking to your end users and you're talking to the content authors and you're talking to the people who are going to be utilizing this system from content creation all the way down to utilization, try to keep an open mind as best you can and just listen to what they're looking to do. And don't try to put them in boxes. Don't try to lead them down into the path that you necessarily want them to go through. That's my argument. Now, I understand some corporate organizations, that may not be a choice. You've already made a purchase. You have to use this solution. Okay, I'm still going to counter argue that getting an overall view of what your users are looking to have done, what they need to be able to get their job done during this phase, not having a specific solution in mind is going to help you get a broader view of what it is that is needed. That way you can go back to your product sponsors, go back to your organization, say, all right, you told us we have to use this. Our end users really want this. We heard from 95% of people they need this, and we can't do it with what you told me. I would like to make a business case of why we need this other tool. If you can do a successful step 3 where you're talking to your end users, that's going to give you the potential ability to go to your project sponsors and say, hey, we heard differently. We would like to consider this. I don't know if that's actually going to be needed, but we do our best to keep an open mind during this step 3, even when we're told we have to stay in a box. I wouldn't put your end users in a box when you're talking to them. So how do you talk to them? Through those interviews, through having workshops. So interviews would be more like one-on-one, or where you're talking to one person at a time. Your workshops where you're talking to multiple people at a time. More than likely, you'll have more workshops than interviews because you're going to need to talk to broader groups of people at once, because interviews If you're talking to an hour per person, that could be really challenging. But if you talk to 5 or 8 people in an hour, you can get a lot more general view of what kind of the type of end users that you might have, get them in a room and find out what it is that they need in order to get their job done. You're not asking them, what do you want? Because that they're not going to know. They're going to want that faster horse rather than a car. But help lead them down as to what is it that they do in their day job, what is it that they do day in, day out, where are their pain points, what are the things that are difficult for them to do, and things like that. Surveys can also help you reach broader groups of people. Pretty easy to build surveys nowadays as well, using things like SurveyMonkey, or even internally using something like Microsoft Forms. You can provide pretty quick surveys where you can grab more information from a much even broader group of people. Looking at your existing site or your existing solution you may have, and reading through the analysis of that and how it's utilized, where it's underutilized, walking through the existing solutions with your end users and finding out where the pain points are all ways to gather more information about what it is that your end users need in order to do their job. If you're looking to how to organize content or how to reorganize navigation or how your solutions are put together, we found card sorting to be very important. This is not a good time to be talking into detail what card sorting is if you're new to that, but it's something that we'd be happy to talk to you about, or just Google card sorting. You can learn about it. It's sort of what it sounds like. You've got a bunch of cards with some keywords, phrases, etc. And what you're doing is you're working with people to find out how they group things. Every time we've done card sorting, the results have been fascinating, and we found that people did not match what our expectations were, and that's a good thing. I always found every group that I worked with on card sorting, they would resort the content in different ways, and it was always fascinating to see how that worked. And it always changed some way, sometimes great, sometimes very little, but still changed the original idea of how things were going to end up. So I found card sorting to be really great if you have the time to do it. Highly recommend it. This allows you to understand your end users better. So get that foundation of the project, finding out from end users, what is it that they need. Try not to bias yourself at this point as to how you're going to do it. Just grab that information, document it, get it sorted in yourself, get it collected together so that you understand as broad as possible what it is that the people who will be using your solution, the solution that you're going to be working on or building, what kind of problems it's looking to solve directly from the users itself. This then allows you to start to prescribe that solution. Okay, so we now know what they need. Now we know what it is that we need to build. We know what the outcome needs to be. We know that it needs to solve these kind of problems. So at this point, we can start to say, great, let's pick the platform that can do it, or maybe we've already picked the platform. Can the platform do what it is that we're trying to do? How are we going to put the platform or platforms together? So if you take something like Microsoft 365 and you know that you're going to be able to use SharePoint and Stream and Teams and Yammer and Planner, etc., using Forms for Forms, Power Automate, excuse me. How are you going to be able to use the tools that are available to be able to deliver what it is that you're going to do? Maybe you can't. Maybe some tools have been just flat out denied in your organization, or who knows, whatever. You can start to prescribe the solution that's going to meet the needs of your users, because that's super important. Remember, that's the whole point here is we're listening to our users. We're prescribing that solution. And during this prescription component, this is where I want you to be also thinking about, okay, these are the platforms we're going to use. How can we meet the needs of our end users using the out-of-the-box, the OTB out-of-the-box features that the platforms provide for us? In general, it is best to stick with the platform you're going with the features they provide. And for those of you who know me, I'm a custom dev. I'm an engineer. I want to build you the coolest custom thing possible. But in reality, the best case is to start from what can we do out of the box? How can we leverage the platforms and solutions we're already paying for from Microsoft or from whatever solution provider you've got? How can we utilize that? Because they're going to be constantly improving those features. They're going to be adding new features, and you might as well leverage those. That being said, we found that often it's going to require you to build custom things. That's okay, but highlight those. What are the things that are going to be the features or solutions that you're going to need to build custom? Maybe you need a custom provisioning solution on how components will be provisioned in Teams or in SharePoint, and Microsoft doesn't really have an out-of-the-box solution for that. If they don't, okay, great. So but you need that, okay? Prescribe through how you would be looking to do that. What are the methodologies you're going to need? Can you line up the resources for that? Because you might say that you don't have those resources, you don't have the budget, you can't do any of that. You want to know that now during the solution prescription aspect of what can we do in our organization, what can the budget afford for us. Another component about staying about when you're prescribing the solution is all about understanding the roadmap of the solution that you're looking at. So again, going back to Microsoft 365, Microsoft provides a very good solid roadmap of where they're looking to take things. Knowing what's on the roadmap is going to be important for you so that you know what's coming, because you may be looking to do something such as multilingual. You know, multilingual is going to be important. And if it was 2 years ago, Microsoft didn't have a solution for that on SharePoint Online. Now Microsoft said it was on the roadmap, so you have to decide, do I build it or do I wait? And at least if you knew it was on the roadmap, you can make an educated decision instead of just saying, oh, the feature's not there, we can't do it. There you go. The highlighted news web part in SharePoint Online is becoming very sophisticated. Great. So if you don't know what's on the roadmap and where Microsoft is saying that's going to go, then if you say, well, that web part can't do what we want now because we want to do this one thing, but it's on the roadmap and you didn't know that, so you go through all the effort to build your own, and a quarter later or something, Microsoft comes out with their own. That'd be a shame to have sort of wasted your custom development time. Maybe you could have waited. Now, maybe you couldn't. Maybe you said, no, we need this. It's okay. We want to do more later. We want a custom. Excellent. This is that step to figure that thing out, which actually then leads us into the next step as well, which I think is also an aspect of that, which is reviewing and validating the aspects of when you're prescribing that solution. So I would love to just say, great, we prescribed a solution and we're going to go, and now let's go design and build it. No, this is where you need to iteratively work through with your end users, with your project stakeholders, with everyone. Did this make sense? Is our solution, is the solution we're prescribing actually going to solve the needs that we're looking for? Maybe you need to prototype some things. Maybe you want to play with some tools and work with people and say, hey, so we really want to do some sort of news roll-up on something, and we know we want an architecture that has some sort of structure of sites because of permissioning. Does the web part's going to do what we want it to do? We want to be able to have Teams that has a channel and Teams tab to do something. We're actually going to talk about prototyping in the next step as well, but this would be just like sort of feature testing and stuff. Is this going to do what it is? It is, in fact, the platform you're looking to use. Is that going to be the right platform? Will that solve the needs either now or in the future based upon the roadmap? Or can we customize it in a way that we can also maintain it in a way that makes sense for the future? Can we refine the solutions that we prescribed from that were custom? We said, that's going to be custom. Can we now, through an iterative review process, realize, out of the box may work? Maybe we work through with our project stakeholders, our content authors, and say, we know that you asked for this, and this is why, because we listened to you, step 3. But this is what we can provide to you very quickly and easily in this manner. Is this going to suffice? Is this going to match the needs? And through this review process, you can answer those questions, or you can try to answer those questions sufficiently enough to really drive value for your organization, where you're attempting to save time, save budget, etc. on some features so that you can maybe use that time or the budget elsewhere to provide some of those other more important aspects or whatnot. Make sure that the solution approaches are in fact going to match the needs that you want. And during all of these steps, I would like to see you done this, but definitely during the step 5, before we start actually putting design pen to design paper, is documenting the approach that you've provided here. Now, what we typically do if we were involved in a project up to this stage, we would have been building something called like a business requirements document or functional requirements document, whatever it is, or governance documentation, whatever it is that you would do. I really want to see you have those documents in place that you've somehow built to document out what it is that we heard. These are the needs that our organization said that we needed, because these are the kind of the quotes that we heard. This is the solution that we've prescribed based on the technologies that we are going to use, that we have licensing to, whatever. Here's technically how we're going to be building it. These are the things that are looking to be custom. These are the things that are looking to be out of the box. These are the things that are going to be utilizing open source or community-driven solutions, etc. Why the decisions were made for that, so that you can go back and remember, because you're going to forget some of the stuff and people are going to question some of your things, some of the decisions. Having that written down is really going to help everyone understand why we got to where we're at and where we're looking to go. Now, these documents are not a set it and forget it thing, and too often I unfortunately see that in other organizations. These should be living documents. They should change. They will change. This should not go into a repository no one ever opens again. These should not be read-only. These are documents that should be re-reviewed monthly, quarterly, every half year, something, and saying, does the solution we have still meet the needs? Does this still make sense? Go back to some of the out-of-the-box things, see if they can be improved. Go back to some of your custom things, see if they need to be updated, migrated, move to a new version, move to out-of-the-box, etc. As well as going back to your end users and looking at your metrics and talking to them, reviewing the metrics to ensure things worked out. That all, we're going to get to those steps, by the way, but that all relates back to this documentation. You really want to keep that up to date. This is one of those things, for every hour you invest in that kind of thing, you're going to get back in very large return on those kind of preparatory hours. So once you have all of this, once you have all of this foundation, now to me, it's time to actually start to design this thing, to actually start to say, okay, well, what's this going to look like? I mean, how's this actually going to look on our solution? How are we going to start to build the UI and the UX that we've talked about, that the session is supposed to be about? I need you to get that planning done right. This is when I want to start seeing you wireframe, start to build some general designs of how things are going to look like. You're going to start looking to build some mock-ups. You're going to start building some deeper prototypes. Now, I talked in the previous step about general prototyping, maybe of feature sets, making sure the solution can do what you want. This kind of prototyping to me is a larger subset of solutions and features. This is where you'd be looking to build more of maybe some sites, some pages, some teams, some channels, some tabs. You're starting to play with a larger subset of things, but not in a finished way, and not for a larger organization, but maybe for a smaller subset of people to say, okay, is this solution still going to match what we need, and is it starting to look the way that we want it to look? Now, there's this graph on the lower left that I really like, and it's this timeline idea. And during the research, you're going all over the place. You're going backwards, you're going forwards, you're making big jumps, small jumps, loops, whatever. But as time goes on, you should start narrowing that down, and that curve, if we want to call it, should start to flatten out into the concept until we finally get to the design. And at that point, we should finally have that baseline where, like, yeah, this makes sense. I don't want you to limit yourself during that research side, during that listening side. I want you to be having this open mind, because you're trying to build the task you have. Every one of you is on this call. The task you have in front of you is all about building a solution that your users are going to use. If you're not doing that, I don't know what you're trying to do. I guess if you have an option, hey, please tell me. But I still go back to the quote: if you build a beautiful solution that no one uses, it's still beautiful. No, it's not. This whole thing is about adoption. It's about utilization. And during that research phase, please keep that in an open mind. So the solution design, at this point, you can start to get that mock-up, what's going to look like. Of course, if you're looking at a Microsoft-related platform, you want to think through what's possible, more supported. It would be my recommendation. Keep that within the box as best you can, and at least now you'll know what the solution needs to look like. You'll have validated that it should work well within the platform in a more built-out way, and you're ready to now kind of go into the build and implement. Now, of all the steps, this is really the only build step, because it's all about planning. It's all about making sure what it is. At this point, this is not a short step. I admit that. This could take you months. It could take a very long time to build. But the building becomes significantly easier when you know exactly what it is you're building it, why you're building it, why that's the right solution, how it's going to look like, how things are going to be put together. Is it custom? Is it not? Is it out of the box, etc. You can now build it with confidence that you're doing it the right way. Now, I always recommend, of course, that you're following Microsoft's suggested patterns, the successful patterns that they're recommending. You can extend that greatly, of course, with what the community represents. Now, in the Microsoft ecosystem, in the SharePoint Teams ecosystem, etc., there's the Microsoft or SharePoint P&P community. If you just Google SharePoint P&P, you'll find the new iteration of the Microsoft 365 P&P community. They have so many different groups there that are working on lots of different things, from custom SharePoint components to Teams components to best practices to even how to participate in the community. Super powerful stuff. Well, they have provided, the community is solidifying. We all sort of continue to refine what we consider the most successful patterns that are out there. Now, I'm being very careful with my wording. You're going to hear people talk about a lot of patterns and practices. A lot of times people talk about what's best practices. And I found best practices can be kind of a little misleading. we're splitting a lot of words here. I like the idea of more successful patterns rather than just practices. It's sort of like there's a group of people that don't like the word end users because it's kind of too defining. Aren't we all end users? And there's other reasons. But that's a term I am comfortable with using to say end users, but I prefer to stick away from best practices because I don't know if there are any best practices, but there are definitely successful patterns. There's patterns that I found, PixelMill's found, the community has found. Try to follow those and educate yourself as best you can, or make sure that the team that's doing the implementation is doing the best they can to follow what has been found as being the most successful patterns. Now, of course, we've talked about this is when you're building and implementing, you're going to be utilizing out-of-the-box features. You might be building custom. Both is totally fine, in my opinion. Just make sure you're doing it with a pattern and that you're doing it for reasons that make sense. Don't just build all custom because you've got a powerful development team. Anyone who knows me should be laughing because that is funny because I love building things like custom. It's fun. I'm just a total nerd that way. But I would still argue that you want to be building custom on purpose because you need something that can't be done out of the box. You can't get it because you don't let a developer say, we do it because they just don't understand that you can actually customize an out-of-the-box web part to get 99% of what's there, and that 1% isn't worth it. Do it for purpose and whatnot. Okay. Another piece I want to talk about is how you're going to be building the solution within your organization. I recommend having at least 3 builds within your organization on building solutions. So where this comes down to is the 2 easy ones is a development build. You're having a development site, ideally a developer tenant, a developer farm, an entire collection of all of the pieces that really only the development team or the team that's building the portal overall, like, you all, if you're not the developers, the business analysts, the stakeholders, et cetera, that they have access to this. Well, that group would have access to a build that absolutely is not production, is not designed for the end user, could be broken all the time. Maybe it requires really special scripting to get running. Great. That's a perfect build. The dev build, you want that. You need that. You also, of course, need your production build, your production tenant. That's your live. That's what everyone's using. You need a minimum of those 2. Of course, I believe strongly. I mean, if you're deving on production, I know people do it. I don't recommend it. I believe strongly that a development tenant is better than just a development site collection. So if you can do it, if you have something like PixelMill.SharePoint.com or PixelMill.Microsoft.com, I really want to see you have PixelMill.Dev.Microsoft.com or SharePoint.com or something, a whole different tenant. Microsoft allows you to have a developer tenant. It's free for 90 days, I think. You get 25 E3 licenses or 25 E3. E5, they keep kind of changing them on me. And Microsoft's perspective of this is if it's being used for development, like true development, and they've got their metrics to do it, if you're using it for development, it actually is free indefinitely. But even if it's not, even if it costs you 5 licenses, so it's $50-100 a month or something, I argue that's pennies in the bucket to be able to provide an isolated environment to do all of your development. Okay, now the third minimum environment I'm asking you to consider, and I've seen reasons for having 4 or 5 environments, but the middle one, the one in between all this, is some sort of UAT or user acceptance testing or staging or preview or pre-production. Lots of different words you could use for this middle build, but this is an environment, this is a spot where you can take whatever in dev, when it's ready to go, ready to go to production, you put it over in the staging environment, in a clean environment that greatly matches your production environment so that you can validate, okay, this is the bits that are about to go on production. Is this good? Is the solution going to work? And have maybe a slightly larger group of people test this UAT build for you, that the thing you've done is going to work. And even when you start to do patching, you start to do updates, you're having people validate on this UAT build that this is good before it goes to production. Going from dev to production is a very risky scheme. I don't like it. It's too risky. I would never recommend it. So having at least those 3 builds is important. I would argue you should have them all in 3 different tenants if you could. If you can't, I understand often maybe the UAT build will be in the production environment. That way it's actually using all production data. If you're building custom solutions, that can be a little tricky. There's things that you might have to do way beyond the discussion of this webinar, but it's something just to think about. While you're building and implementing, you should also be considering what's it going to require to maintain this solution long term. As in, are you building it all custom? Are you building a custom component that only one developer is working on and they're not releasing their code to the greater team? What happens if they leave? What happens if they are? Maybe they're sharing their code in proper ways, but it's so complex and never documented that if they were ever to leave, to get transferred, to be promoted, whatever, that no one could now read that code. No one could utilize it. What do you do? So thinking through how are you going to maintain this thing that you're building during this build and implementation phase, to me is extremely important as well. So lots baked into step 7, but I really wanted to highlight some of the key points that I think are going to be important for you to build that successful solution that your end users are actually going to end up using. Okay, so as you're building, this kind of goes back to the waterfall versus agile. While you're building, once you get to a certain spot, you should probably start looking at providing the testing and QA, the quality assurance, even though you still might be building. So this is waterfall-y, but your testing should begin before you're done with step 7, and step 7 may have started before you're done with step 6, etc. So during this testing in QA, you'd be working potentially in that UAT environment, and you're looking to see, now that we've built this thing, or as we're building it, do we actually meet the needs of our end user? Are we providing them that solution in practice that's going to meet their specific needs? Did we meet the UI requirements? Are the color palette correct? Are we using that empty space properly? Were we able to get the right fonts used and the right size so that it makes sense? But then also, did we meet the user experience that we're expecting? Can they navigate? Are we finding during testing people can navigate properly? Are they finding the buttons that they're looking for and not getting frustrated because things are too compact, or the flow of the content doesn't make any sense for them? They're not able to adjust the content. Now in practice, you're able to do that and work with them and validate all of this. So if you need to, you can go back and re-refine as needed. I recommend during this testing, ideally, that the UAT environment, your testing environment, is built similar, if not almost exactly the same as your production environment. That way you can truly test the solution in a like manner. So when you go to production, there really should be no questions it's going to work, because it's basically using the same type of data or same data, et cetera. Now, I prefer always to have more than one tester, ideally a couple, but in particular, I want to see them have different types of accounts, different levels of access. Some people might be administrators, some people are content authors, some people are readers, some people are in different groups, so that you can validate that people don't have access to what they shouldn't have access to, etc. So a lot goes into testing in QA, but please do make sure that you test it before you start looking to do some of the rollout. So before you roll it out, it's gonna be our step 10. I really want to see you start to provide the ability to train and work through adoption with your end users. And what I mean by this is, just because you build it and you think it's intuitive, it's not. You're gonna have people who are gonna get frustrated. You might think it's intuitive because you've been touching it a lot, you've been working on the solution a lot, but it's not. You want to think through, how are we going to help our end users adopt this solution and utilize it? If you can find and empower champions, Microsoft has a whole Microsoft 365 champions program. Just Google that, you'll learn all about it. Your champions are not your content authors necessarily. They're not people who are involved in the project. These are really end users who love technology, who get it, who understand what it is you're trying to do, and they like leading the organization on these kind of things. They like being the person to go to for answers, and they get it. Find those people in different departments, or just say every department needs a champion, and get someone elected who they're going to be your front line for helping specific groups, departments, collections of people, etc., get the solution and get some more immediate help. Now, I believe it's also important to have on really any solution, because solutions require content, that you have some sort of content creator program for training them so they understand how to add content. Definitely if you're building more of like a big portal, or if you have people that are going to be building teams for collaboration, so teams are going to have channels, etc. Their content creators might be more like the teams managers, but they're not the administrators, but they're people who will be given access to build teams and then to create the channels and apps, etc. Providing them training programs in how to be able to use this is going to be super important. Now, Microsoft has something called their learning library, their learning center. Building some sort of learning center within your organization, I think, will be key. So Microsoft has has a solution for that freely available, where you can just import it into SharePoint and into your SharePoint environment, and it pulls some of the latest, greatest training content from Microsoft. This is a no-brainer. But you'll most likely want to extend that to your organization. Having a place where your different types of users can learn more about your solution is going to be key to long-term maintenance and support. That way, you're not going to get 1,000 emails from everyone saying, how is it that I create a new team, or how do I create a new site or new portal, or how do I add a page in SharePoint, et cetera. You want all of that already pre-built in a way that can be easily digested by people on demand as necessary, so that they can just do the job. And then starting to provide that the launch plan and executing upon that launch plan. Now we're ready to go live. It's been tested. We have these campaigns set up, et cetera. Let's go ahead and get that launch plan out before we go and launch. Now, I think here what's important is the omnidirectional, so not one way, not two way, but omnidirectional communication plan. This is a way that you can communicate with them, they can communicate with you, they can communicate with each other. Things like this would be feedback forums, where you have teams set up where people can provide questions, where it's published who's in charge of this area, this content, the solution, and they can reach them on the communication platform of your choice. Say, like in Teams, this is the person to contact, so that they can get this thing, some sort of a Yammer feed or whatnot, where people are able to ask these questions and get questions answered quickly. It is extremely important that I believe that you have this omnidirectional plan in place, and that it is actually actively monitored and maintained. One of the worst things you can do is have a solution that people can ask questions on and no one ever answers those questions, or they don't answer them in a public forum, because what then happens is people will see that and they'll go, oh, well, this obviously is not a good place to answer questions, because the last question was asked 6 months ago, there never was an answer. Obviously, I shouldn't use this, and they're going to email you again. Kind of defeats the whole purpose of a lot of things. Provide that end user training. It's really helpful during your launch plan to have like posters in your office. Although in the pandemic age, that's a little not as useful for us, but hopefully we'll all be able to go back to an office at some point to be able to have messaging when people walk in the front door, and they could say, hey, the new solution's available. Log in at pixelmill.sharepoint.com, or click on this icon, the hub icon, to be able to get started or whatever. Office hours, I think, are also really useful. Hey, you can contact us on Teams at this location from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Pacific every Monday. And there's somebody that's managing it that someone could go in and ask in a more public forum, hey, I've got a question, how do I do this? Or like the coffee chat idea or something like that. That's become very popular in the pandemic age, to help people be able to get together and have a coffee in the morning or something. So I think those office hours really help, and allowing people to have some feedback helps. But don't forget, this is ongoing. This is never going to stop. And by driving all of the steps we've talked about so far, you're already you should have in place by this point this feedback loop that should not get shut down now that you've launched. In fact, double down on it. This is the time now to continue to provide the value of the solution you have, and to not have to ideally rebuild it in 5 years, but rather evolve it all the time. Because this evolution is not stopping. It's cliche to say it's getting faster, but it is. In the cloud world, the tools that we see are they're evolving so much quicker, and everyone has more access to this general knowledge. We're seeing what's out there, and we're saying, hey, we really want this new tool we heard about, so we go and install and download it in our organization, and we open our organization up to issues and concerns, and that's a real problem. So assume your solution is going to evolve. Get that feedback loop in place. If you haven't already, please, you should have many steps ago. But act on the valuable feedback that comes in when people provide feedback. Work with them on it. Don't try to shut it down blatantly, because you're just going to discourage people from ever talking to you. If you can get the feedback now that, hey, I do this job, this specific thing, the solution you built, it doesn't work for me because of this reason, and if it makes sense, and if it's something that you can address, you should address it. If you can't, talk to that person, work with them as best you can, or at least get it passed to the right person to help that person, not then start to look at, okay, well, how am I going to go around the system and potentially open the organization up for other risks? So my bonus here, as we're wrapping up, so I do hope we're going to have some questions soon. If not, hey, no worries, The next webinar that we're going to be providing on the PixelMill webinar series is all about helping you create that feedback loop. So we're really looking forward to that. Michael's going to be telling you all about it. We're going to be sending it out on all of our updates on this webinar with the recording. You'll get your emails and notifications as well on this next recording. But please do mark that in your calendar. At the end of August, we are going to be discussing creating an effective feedback loop. Okay, so I'm going to skip the Q&A slide because I want to go ahead and get this out there for you, and I'll leave it here. So we've really enjoyed providing these webinars. We provided them for 4 or 5 years now, so well before the pandemic, but it's definitely been fun to provide you this additional training when we can't see you in person as much. You know, none of us can travel, of course, to conferences that don't exist. But we want to continue to make these webinars better. Attendance keeps going up, questions keep getting even better. We're getting more, getting great feedback. We want more. So what we've done is we are looking to provide a feedback form for you at the end of these webinars. And what we want to do is make it easy for you. It's a Microsoft form. So it's that pixely address you see, that P, M, W, and the capital J. Those capitalizations are important. But I'll leave this up in case you want to load this. But take the quick survey, and every month, every webinar, we're going to go ahead and randomly select someone and shoot off an Amazon gift card to you. So there are some official rules there at the bottom that you can read. This will be open more than just today. So you know, if you want to wait, I guess you could, but I wouldn't. We'd like to know how we're doing. Give us some feedback. What is it that you would like to hear about, or what can we do to make it better? We're always trying to get outside guests as well, outside experts, because as much as I would like to think I know everything, I know I do not know everything. And there are a lot of really awesome experts out in the community, and we're looking to include them as well. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this one. I've been looking forward to being able to provide the overview of this discussion for a while, because PixelMill's roots, I mean, since '98, we were building user interfaces on old school front page web pages. We evolved with everyone else as that turned into SharePoint, and SharePoint turned into Teams and all the rest. We've been working along that, but our core is still a lot about user interface and user experience, because of how important that is to the adoption of campaigns. That's the adoptions of solutions. If you don't worry about the interface and you just take the out-of-the-box tools, as much as SharePoint I think could work really well and Teams can look really good, if you just throw it together and don't think about how users are going to use it and how the experience is going to be, I've yet to find a solution that got adopted that didn't do that. So we're really excited to be able to share with you all the experiences we learned over the last 20, 21 years on this. So yeah, thank you for joining us. Michael, any questions that people are asking, or anyone now? You know, please get some questions.
Yeah, got a few questions for you. I just want to reiterate, thank you everyone for joining us today. And Eric, thank you so much. That was just a truly wonderful session. All right, a few questions for you, Eric. Going back to KPIs,
yes.
Can you provide some sample KPIs you used in the past? Which ones worked and which ones didn't work, and why?
Yeah, I would love to provide this in. We're going to have to provide, I would like to provide you more concrete examples post this, but I can tell you in general. So KPIs, key performance indicators, some of the real low-hanging fruit is general utilization. So let's just take SharePoint as an example. I want to know how many users, and Microsoft provides these reports, and the Microsoft Admin Center is also why I'm picking it up. It is just general page load, how many people are using pages, and what are the most popular pages that are being loaded. What I'm trying to get out of this is, let's take a general portal. A lot of portals have news. Okay, are people loading this? I have 5,000 people in my organization, yet only 2,000 people last month loaded it. That's not what we're looking for. So we're doing something wrong. And so a KPI might be that we want to take our current utilization of our current portal at 1,000 people a month are using this. We want to increase that to 2,500 within 3 months of launch or something like that. It's really easy, low-hanging fruit. Are people loading and utilizing the solution? I might want to then start to see some more even granular reports. And this one can get a little more tricky, but something like with search. I know people are going to be searching a lot. I want a KPI that says that the searches that people are asking for, the top 10 searches of the month, should always have recommended results that get people to answers more quickly. Now, I don't want to get into search to that level of detail, but what I'm trying to say is that you're looking at a specific feature set and saying, what's the utilization of that? You can definitely do that already, like with email. You can do it with Teams utilization as well. I might go another way as well and say, okay, well, what's our email utilization? How many emails are being sent internally in our organization? And some of this could be anecdotally, where you're surveying people. How many emails do you receive? Do you send and receive, send and then another question, receive within your organization in a given day? Guesstimate. All right, in 6 months, we're going to go back and we're going to ask that same question because we're rolling out Microsoft Teams and we're going to be declaring in our organization no more internal emails. Okay, in 6 months, the KPIs, and I know 6 months, you might have these other terms, but I want to go a little extreme on it. Within 6 months, we want to see that number drop by 50%, because face it, as much as I say in our organization, we don't allow internal emails, and in general, we don't, I still slip an email to someone because I want to forward an email and I don't want to forward it to Teams. I mean, yeah, I shouldn't say that to you because it's like admitting, but it's the truth, right? We're going to still see it. So taking the solution you're building, what's adoption look like, or what does the utilization that you expect look like, and building a KPI around the utilization of that. There's some harder ones to track within Microsoft tools would be, I expect people to get to all content within 3 clicks. Okay, there's a lot of debate over does that matter or not, but let's just say that that's something you want to track. What you're trying to get at is do people get to the information they're looking for fast enough? And this might be one of those things offhand that you can ask in initial surveys on what people are doing. How guesstimate, how many clicks does it take for you to find what you're looking for in your existing portal? Because let's say you're building a new portal. People will have an answer for you. We've asked this question before and people have an answer. Oh, it takes me like 10 clicks. I have to click around. Great. Just get that idea of what that average looks like and then ask them again in 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever that you might be looking for, or ask them continually. And you might say that here's our goal. We're looking to, we were told 10. We want to get that down to 4 because we think all content should be 4 clicks away and it should be intuitive to find or should be searchable. You can then build that. The problem is that SharePoint, as I said, doesn't really provide you the straight metrics to be able to do that. You may have to do more anecdotal form-based KPIs that push that into Excel or something, so you can build some reports for your project sponsors or for your senior leadership. I could talk about that question for a long time, so I'm going to stop rambling. See if there's any other questions, Michael. But if not, I mean, I can get back to more KPIs.
That was a great answer. Thank you. And yes, if you ever ask Eric about KPIs, be prepared for a very long answer.
Well, there's so many things you can test. So
very true,
it's
yes.
a very important question that I'm glad that was asked. It's but to try to sum that up, because it is really important to me, is what would utilization look like in the real world, and then doing your best to see, is there a good chart that works that can provide that to you, that Microsoft provides? If not, you may have to do surveys. You asked like what hasn't worked, and I'm going to keep thinking about that, about what sort of KPIs didn't do anything for us. But I think that's a very important question as well.
Definitely. All right, so another question here. That was great. If we go for customization to make sure we get what is needed for the organization, how can we secure that an update from Microsoft won't make it stop working? If I assume this person says if PM, so if PixelMill will build the customization, do you also provide service to monitor and keep track of what Microsoft will do that could affect our solution?
Yes, so I'll answer that last part first. Yes, we do. We're happy to do it, but I want to also be able to answer that question from a non-sales perspective. That in general, so this is what we do, and this is then I think what you should be looking to do in general. This goes back to that following the Microsoft best practices. So the patterns, the successful patterns, and they provide a documentation. And I'm going to stick with Microsoft. I'm going to stick with SharePoint because it's an easy example. Teams is similar as well. Microsoft has released documentation, kind of a box, and they're saying stay in this box. If you stay within this box, we are not going to break you anytime soon. So in the SharePoint world, that would be called SharePoint Framework. And the SharePoint Framework is up to version 1.11. We started at 1.0, which means we've had multiple updates, not just the major version, well, minor versions 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, but there's been patch versions as well. So a lot of versions since then. But Microsoft has said we will continue to support all versions of the SharePoint Framework. At some point, they're going to probably say, no, we're not. We're not going to support that anymore. And they'll then deprecate that. So 10-year plan? Probably something will break. But if you can stay within their box, you can build a solution that sticks within that and follows that pattern. You'll probably be okay for a while, for many, many years. Okay, that being said, a lot of people like to get outside of the box. They like to do things they shouldn't do. They start to try to manipulate other parts of the page, and one that we've been asked to do that is very common, which is we want to change the header, the Microsoft SharePoint out-of-the-box header that Microsoft provides with the navigation. In particular, we want to hide it. So we do that. We can provide that for our customers. You can as well. The thing is, and we tell our customers, every client we've had that we've done this, we tell them, eventually Microsoft's going to break that because we went outside of Microsoft's supported platform. So there's a couple of options here that we follow as well as that I would suggest you follow as well as you do. One is that you have a development build that's on first release. The idea being here is you're going to attempt to get the latest updates from Microsoft before they push them to a more stable, their general release GA tenants. So you can see what things are coming. That doesn't always happen this way perfectly, though. So the second thing is on your customizations, if you're going to break outside of the box, you do everything you can to, when you're coding it, to assume it's going to break. Microsoft's going to break your code. So what kind of fallbacks can you have in place so that when it breaks, it doesn't destroy the experience so that you can then go in and fix it? If you're going to go outside the box, you must have some sort of maintenance plan in place. You either work with someone like us where, hey, you pay us a managed service fee and we will maintain that for you, or you have an internal team that is on top of this. You meet weekly, you meet twice a week, you meet monthly, quarterly, whatever. You look at what happened. You have a 0-day patch support process. So if something breaks, there's a known channel to go to say, your custom header just destroyed the site, you need to fix it now. And everyone knows who's involved in that, how to go get to the code, and you're prepared for the disaster because it's gonna happen. I have found if you stay within the box, for the last couple of years the framework has been out, you've been fine. I believe Teams is similar, although Teams is much more, is still in a lot more flux. There's a lot more things changing over at Teams. So it's not as stable right now to be able to make some of these same assertions. But definitely, if you stay in the box, you'll be okay. Okay, that all being said, I'm going to keep extending this. I'm involved in some projects. We're involved in some projects where some components were built using SharePoint framework versions that are now 2 years old or 1 year old, and those need to be updated. Really, just because you've been building new components, you have old components in an old version, new components in a new version, you really want to maintain that. So having a process in place to be able to update customizations and then work them through the dev and UAT process to be able to then release them into production safely and securely, I think is important. You'll have to budget time for that, your time or budget to have someone do the work for you, of course, to keep things updated. You don't have to. Microsoft is saying that are not going to break this. And in general, I believe them for the mid-time, 1 to 5 years. 10 years, my assumption is probably anything we build in 10 years is probably going to break. So Microsoft will have made a change and they'll have deprecated something. I have no knowledge on that. I'm not telling you that because I've been told it or there's some secret thing. I'm just saying that in the cloud, I do expect things to eventually evolve away from where they're at now. So I wish I could answer that question quickly as well. I would just suggest in general, stay within the box that's been provided for customizations if you want to be safest. If you're going to break that box, your solution will break at some point next week to 5 years from now. Can't tell you when. Have a plan in place to be able to monitor that. But even if you're doing customizations in the box, I would still have a development core team meet weekly or monthly. I wouldn't go past every month, maybe for 2 weeks. Look through the solutions, make sure everything's okay. Have we heard it got any feedback that this thing broke? That web part that we built to manage something, to have some feature is now needs this new thing. You go look at it and you realize it's on a framework version 2 years old. Maybe that's a good time to update it and look at the latest successful patterns. And you might realize, wow, we can save 50% of our code, thus making the thing a little quicker because new successful patterns have been out there. Lastly, the last thing I'll say on that is the community, the PnP community runs many bi-weekly calls. Basically every Thursday, there is a call at 7 a.m. Pacific on some topic related to SharePoint, Teams, Microsoft 365 that the community runs that I highly recommend you be a part of. Best way to find out about it, just Google it. Right now it's SharePoint PnP is the best way, but I believe it's going to be Microsoft 365 PnP. If it's not already, it will be soon. Excellent. We're running out of time, so I think I got a few more questions.
Yeah, just a couple more. Okay, let's see here. With all the new features to communication sites, does it still make sense to extend intranets with internet-in-the-box solutions?
That's a really tricky question. I don't have a good answer for you on that one, like a solid yes or no. The canned solutions, these out-of-the-box solutions, typically are providing you features that you cannot get on SharePoint yet. and or they're providing you a provisioning mechanism to be able to provision a canned component of SharePoint. Now, SharePoint is evolving their feature set, they're evolving their provisioning methodology, but they probably are not evolving it fast enough for a lot of people, and that's therefore these canned solutions are able to fill that niche. If that's what you're looking for, there's really nothing you can do. Well, you can. That option is, of course, then you build it yourself. So if you're in a build environment where you've got a build team, there's a strong chance that it's going to be, you'll want to build it because now you can control and maintain the code yourself. But if you don't have that, or you're like, we'd rather invest the X thousands, X tens of thousands of dollars, that are hundreds of thousands, depending on the canned solution that they have, that you can go ahead and save a lot of time and effort, and you'll probably get a solution out much quicker. So if you want something out tomorrow, next week, next month, these canned solutions may help you accelerate that. That all being said, the solutions that I find best are the ones that are built on top of, in particular the Microsoft ecosystem, are the ones built on top of the solution, not trying to break around it. Some of the larger, more expensive solutions are maybe, they say, designed to work with SharePoint and Microsoft 365. I found they really aren't. Those kind of solutions, they concern me because you won't be able to migrate to something else, or your tool set will be so dependent on the other solution. I like the canned solutions that build on top of SharePoint. The data all is actually in SharePoint. The page loaded are SharePoint. They might be providing additional custom web parts. They might be providing additional panels and build environments to build the provisioning, all that kind of stuff. Those are really some cool tools that have a lot of promise. And I definitely see a lot of clients that have a need for that, and they get a lot of value added. If they came to us and said, would you build it? We can, and it might cost X, but the canned solution may only offer 50% of what custom can do, but the cost may make more sense. So I wish I could give you a solid, oh yes, go canned solution all the way, or don't. I don't have that answer. I think it's different for everybody. To me, I always want to start out of the box. Like, what can I do out of the box? I think one of the big values that PixelMill is able to provide nowadays is helping our clients figure out which way should they go. Because that's hard, and you can't productize that. You can't just pay someone a fixed fee that's going to always be the same. Here's your solution, because everyone's a little different. So planning things out can be very difficult, and if you can get that plan right, and if you get stuck, hey, that's where we'd love to talk to you. That's great. Now you can often build these solutions. How could you build them as best as possible by yourself? How can you maintain them by yourself, because you're using only SharePoint, only Teams, and only out-of-the-box solutions? If you can do that, that's actually a pretty good win. In reality, I'm finding that typically the more successful solutions, especially built around these platforms, require a good provisioning model and a good governance model that Microsoft does not provide out of the box, but they do provide the tools. They provide the provisioning abilities to do it, or the PnP community created the PnP provisioning engines and whatnot, so that you, in forms and Power Automate. I mean, there's a lot of really cool ways built in Azure and Microsoft 365 to do it, but you have to do a little bit of custom code. I like a lot of those solutions for a lot of clients, but if you want to be a little more quicker to market with maybe some more limitations, because you might not be able to do anything you want, then a canned solution might be a good option for you. I would definitely suggest during those first 3 or 4 steps that I provided that you evaluate how could you do, what's the right platform for you? Is it out of the box? Is it out of the box plus? Is it out of the box plus a canned solution? Is it out of the box plus a canned solution plus your own custom components on top of that? I would keep an open mind. I always want you to start at the beginning, though, is can we do this by ourselves on our own, in our own solution, just using the licenses we have? That's a good place to start, even though, again, well, I mean, any client we talk to, of course, realize they need help, and that's where expertise outside vendors can help you accelerate the process, as well as help you uncover things maybe you didn't know about.
Well,
Good.
That was a great answer to that question.
A little long.
I got one. No, I love it. I love it. I got one more for you, and I think it's a really great question to close out on. Where did there we go. You mentioned that it's important to follow Microsoft's roadmap. How do you stay up to date on what is available and what is coming? Mind you, we have 1 minute, Eric, so keep this one short.
What was the end of the question? Is it, do we do it, or
how do you stay up to date on what is available and what is coming?
Yeah, so Google Microsoft 365 roadmap. That's step 1. Step number 2 is to get tapped into the Microsoft PnP 365 PnP community calls. The information they give you, I swear, is under NDA. It's not, but it's bleeding edge stuff. So like the way we do it at our organization is we split that work up because there's so many calls. We have multiple people who take one call a month kind of thing. So if you have a team of 2 or 3 people, a lot of you probably have, not all of you, some of you might have a team of 2 or 3, split up those calls. So you listen to one a month, do a quick recap, put it out on a Teams channel or something so everyone can digest it in 5 minutes. But the roadmap, Microsoft 365 roadmap is a good way, as well as these community calls. They will keep you well informed. And then the other one, especially with the online stuff, attend, inspire, ignite, build. Watch those keynotes online. They're always online, even if they go back into person. So get the quick 3 hours a year of the keynote conferences, and you'll at least know what's coming.
Excellent. And someone asked, can you please post about those PMP calls Eric has referenced? And here's what we'll do. We'll include that in the recap and blog. Probably the easiest way to us to centralize where that information is. So I will make sure that information is up there. Eric, don't let me forget. Someone also made a funny comment of saying, read the Twitter tea leaves by following the right folks. Also an excellent way to know what's happening. What's going on.
I agree completely. It's just sometimes that can be, it can be a little challenging. A lot of us don't have the time. Yeah. If you don't have the time, it's, to me, the 365 roadmap that Microsoft publishes. That's a little weird as well sometimes. It's sometimes really difficult to read it because it's like, well, when is it coming? And there's stuff you might not care about. But the community calls, I feel, is some of the best investment in your hour time. And it's wonderful to be a part of a community. Even if you never talk, you just listen. You're not alone in any of this stuff. So it's always kind of nice, in my opinion, to just hear other people having the same problems and to see some of these cool things that are happening. All right, I know we're out of time.
I think we are now officially out of questions. That does bring us to our time. We're just 1 minute over. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a wonderful session. A few of you have already taken the survey, so that's great. Oh, wow. The rest of you who haven't, better step it up because there's already people looking for that Amazon gift card. So make sure you take that survey. And if you can't, maybe your organization doesn't allow you to enter those kind of raffles, which is very understandable. I've seen it a lot. We have an offer in there to say you don't agree. I would love your feedback. Please tell me. This was a great session. This wasn't. Here's why. Eric needs to improve this. Eric's great at that. I really always value this kind of feedback. And since I can't go to conferences for a while, this is the best way I can continue to improve my craft so that I can provide you more value. Exactly. So again, get that survey up there. We love hearing your feedback. We're always looking to improve our webinars and get better ideas for it. So please throw that stuff up there. Again, guys, thank you so much. If you want to keep track of us, again, look up PixelMill on YouTube and hit that subscribe button. Keep track of these videos and our other content that's going to be happening. Will be up there. Our next webinar, as Eric said, is August 27th. It's going to be Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, create an effective user feedback loop for your digital workspace. We're really excited about that one. You'll be hearing all about it in the next month, so get ready for that. Again, find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, I said YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, at PixelMill Team, or just PixelMill. We'd love to hear from you. Use the hashtag PixelMill Webinars. I keep track of those pretty daily. Anyway, enough of my blabbering. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your Thursday with us. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of the month, which is only one more day, and we'll see you all down the road. Take it easy. Thank you.